Hi YouTube! Today I'm going to be doing a video demonstration on how you can prepare your portable electric generator for either winter or long-term storage. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to drain the fuel, change the oil, clean the air cleaner, as well as prepare the combustion chamber for long-term storage. We'll begin by starting up the generator and letting it run for approximately 5 minutes to warm up the engine oil. Now on this Honda generator, what we want to do prior to starting is making sure that the equal throttle switch is set to off, that the fuel vent on the fuel cap is turned to on, and the engine run switch flipped to the on position and choking this engine and giving it a few brisk pulls. Once the engine is started, turn the choke off and allow the engine to run for 5 minutes. Shut the generator down by turning off the control switch on your unit. The next step is to remove all the fuel from the fuel tank, and on this particular Honda generator that can be accomplished by simply opening up the fuel tank cap and then dumping the fuel through a funnel into a approved fuel storage container. Now one thing I want to mention here is that if you're working on your Honda generator, so Honda specifically on this model, that when you're tipping the generator to dump the fuel out, that you don't actually want to dump the generator towards the large access panel side. And the reason being is that the carburetor here can actually get flooded with engine oil that will pass through the engine crankcase breather hose. So on this particular model, we're actually going to be dumping the fuel out by tipping the generator towards the spark plug access cover side located here. Now it always helps to have a helper hold the funnel vertically for you, since I don't have a curved funnel. But if you don't have a helper, you can always take a paper towel and stuff it such that your funnel is snug up against the neck of the gas tank. And then from here, very carefully, take your generator and dump your fuel out. Wipe up any spilled fuel. Once your fuel tank's been emptied, replace the fuel filler cap. Don't forget to also replace the cap on your fuel storage tank. Now that the fuel's been completely removed out of the fuel tank, there's still some residual fuel that's inside the fuel line's fuel pump if your generator has one, as well as the carburetor float bowl. So we're going to go ahead and start up the generator again to burn off all that excess fuel. Make sure that your equal throttle switch is set to off if you have one. Turn your engine switch to on, fuel vent cap to on, and pull briskly. As you can see there, after several attempts of choking and then unchoking and choking again to start the motor, the generator is able to start up again. And basically what this is doing now is pulling out all the excess fuel out of the carburetor, fuel lines, and fuel pump to completely burn it nice and dry. After the generator stopped running, try to restart it again. If it doesn't want to start, go ahead and feel free to choke the motor and try to start it again. Leave the choke on and continue trying to restart it. So as you can see here, with the choke still on, I can no longer get the engine to remotely try to kick over, which means all the fuel in this fuel pump, carburetor, and fuel lines has been spent and burnt off. So once we've given it a good solid 5 to 8 brisk pulls and the motor doesn't start, we can now go ahead and remove the access panel to start draining the engine oil. To remove the engine access cover on this EU2000, using a flat bladed screwdriver, undo the side panel retaining screw, tip the cover forward, and lift up. Locate your engine oil dipstick. On this EU2000, it's located right here on the bottom left corner. Now on my EU2000, I actually have purchased this neat little nifty adapter here. That's basically an extension pipe to the crankcase drain port, which enables me to easily drain my generator without getting oil all over the plastic housing, as well as provide an easy means to refill it through my oil change adapter extension pipe on. So this is what that oil change adapter extension tube looks like, and you can buy it on Amazon with the magnetic billet aluminum, or sorry, the magnetic machined aluminum dipstick that has a magnet on the end of it to capture any metal shavings from internally in the engine. Since these portable generators typically don't have an oil filter, that magnetic dipstick helps in capturing those harmful metal particles. Using a large funnel, proceed to tip the generator fill and drain port where the extension tube was just attached to, and drain all the oil out of your generator. Now you need not fear that you're going to be spilling fuel out of the generator, since we've already burned it all off and have emptied the fuel tank. So the brand of oil that I'm going to be using in my Honda generator is Castrol Syntec Edge 5W30. The reason why I'm installing 5W30 oil is that, well, that's all I have in my garage, and on top of it I do sometimes use my generator when the climate's a bit cooler, and so the oil viscosity that I'm putting in is something that is acceptable by Honda standards. Now, if you're using your generator in warmer climates, feel free to go ahead and use 10W30. It doesn't really matter because they're both 30 weight oils. As far as oil capacity on this generator is concerned, it's about 400 milliliters, or 0.4 liters. And how I'm going to fill that is I'm going to use this long necked funnel and then just place that into the filler tube. Tip the generator back like this, so that my funnel is as vertical as I can get it, and then I'm going to proceed to pour about 400 mils of oil into my gen. Now I'm not sure how well you guys can see this, but my oil level, after progressively adding just tiny amounts of engine oil to my generator, that you could see here that the oil level is literally where the oil dipstick would screw into the motor assembly. And so I can use a bright light here to look inside and see that the oil level is just at the opening of the dipstick hole, which means it's full. So to confirm this, I'm going to carefully unscrew my filler drainage tube, which by the way is also super useful should you overfill your motor, which I've done several times, that you can just dump the clean oil back into your oil container for your next oil change. But as you can see here, that the oil level, I can give you a really bright light, is right at the bottom of this fill tube, or the fill hole. Now if you're just slightly over, it's not really a big deal, but it's not pouring out, which is a sign that it's filled just right. We can go ahead and take our oil dipstick here, which is that magnetic dipstick that I mentioned earlier in my video, to capture all the metal particles. You can see this black stuff here is metal from the engine's normal course of wear and tear. Dipstick's nice and clean. We're going to go ahead and carefully, like the filler tube adapter, screw this back into the engine. Now this dipstick here is also made from machined aluminum, so don't strip it. Tighten it firmly. We'll go ahead and remove the air cleaner assembly. We can accomplish this by using our flat bladed screwdriver and unscrew the air cleaner cover bolt. Remove the pre-filter element, which on this Honda is this coarse foam sponge. You can see here that there's a whole bunch of dirt. and then remove the primary fine air cleaner located up here by simply pulling it out. Using a clean paper towel, wipe the insides of the air cleaner housing and the surrounding air cleaner housing lip to remove all traces of dirt. Do the same cleaning procedure on the air cleaner housing cover. Using a small pail and some plain run-of-the-mill dishwashing detergent, go ahead and wash your air cleaner element in the water. Now, these air cleaner elements typically have a little bit of oil soaked into them to help with the tack properties of the filter to capture more dirt. So using warm or even near hot water and extra soap will help dissolve that oil as well as all the dirt that's embedded in your air filter. Once your filter has been thoroughly washed in the soapy water, go ahead and rinse the element out with some clean water, making sure that you thoroughly rinse it from the clean side out to the dirty side. Repeat the same for the air cleaner pre-filter element. Using a dry and clean paper towel or cloth, extract as much water from the air cleaner element as you possibly can. Now, if you're not in a rush to reinstall your air cleaner assembly, it's best to let the air filters air dry inside your home or your workshop. But since I'm on a time crunch here, I'm just going to use my paper towels to absorb as much water as I can so I can reinstall this and put this thing away. Now, prior to reinstalling my air cleaner element into my portable generator, the Honda owner's manual and most generator owner's manuals that employ a foam filter suggest that you use a bit of engine oil to saturate this filter very lightly with oil to increase its dirt capturing tack capabilities. But I'm going to take this one step further because I have this in my garage, and I'm going to use some foam filter oil made by Bel-Ray. Normally this is used in high performance race filters. My portable generator is anything but that, but the oil is very effective at trapping dirt when I did use it on a motorcycle air cleaner. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to apply a really small amount of this Bel-Ray filter oil on here. As you can see, this filter actually has some tack properties. As you can see, it's kind of sticking here to my finger, and so I want that inside my air cleaner. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to keep adding a little bit of oil each time, and then basically giving my air cleaner a squeeze to allow it to distribute inside the air cleaner assembly, or the element, sorry. Now, for the pre-filter, you can go ahead and do the same thing. You're almost better to just use slightly too little than to have too much of the foam filter oil if this is the route you decide to use instead of plain engine oil like Honda and most other generators manufacturers recommend. Foam filters are pretty effective at capturing most of the dirt that's found out in the field in the environments that these generators are used in, so quite honestly, I wouldn't fret about it too much. So again, like the primary filter, this pre-filter is thoroughly coated and is quite sticky with this Bel-Ray foam oil. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the filter elements into the generator, air cleaner housing. Now, when you're reinstalling the filter, always pay close attention to the condition of the filter. You always want to look at your filter condition when you remove it, after you've washed it, after you've dried it, and after you've re-oiled it, to ensure that you haven't actually torn any portion of the element. Now, if your generator uses a paper element, I strongly advise that you shine the paper element up to a light to make sure that there's no holes in it, so that dirt can't pass through. Double check to make sure that your air cleaner housing cover is clean and that the foam seal inside the perimeter, where it seals against this inner housing, is intact and not crumbling or damaged. If it is, you need to buy a replacement cover immediately, otherwise it won't seal properly. And then just place the cover back on, press firmly so that everything lines up, and the screw should seamlessly go back in with minimal effort, and then just snugly tighten that screw. Next, what we want to do is fog the inside of our engine's cylinder, and we're going to accomplish this by using an engine fogging spray, which is really just a lightweight storage oil that prevents corrosion of your cylinder walls, piston, and rings. So on my EU2000, I'm going to access my spark plug by removing the spark plug access cover, removing the spark plug boot by pulling up on it, and then removing the spark plug with a spark plug wrench, socket extension, and a ratchet. Take your engine fogging spray, and then go ahead and just reach down into the spark plug tube, and then give the cylinder a quick squirt, 2 1-second squirts of this fogging spray. Making sure that your engine switch is set to off, or the ignition being disabled, go ahead with the spark plug removed and pull on the starter string several times to circulate the oil, and then give the cylinder a final quick 1-second squirt. Now before we reinstall the plug, you want to make sure that you double check to make sure that the ceramic insulator isn't damaged, that there's no corrosion anywhere, and that the threads and the electrode are in great shape. Now on my particular engine, since it's had such low runtime, I know that the gap on my spark plug and the overall condition of this plug is still very new and can be reused for many more hours. But before we do the reinstallation of my existing plug, or even a new plug for that matter, we always want to make sure that the threads here aren't stripped or damaged in any way. And then we want to apply a very light coat of anti-seize compound to the spark plug threads. The reason why is your spark plugs are made of a nickel zinc alloy coating that screws into an aluminum cylinder head, and so applying some anti-seize onto the plug threads will prevent it from essentially welding itself into the cylinder head should you forget to service the spark plug on a regular basis. So you don't need a lot, you just need a really thin coat. Then we just want to use our rag here and just clean up any excess anti-seize that might be on the sealing washer, and making sure that there's no anti-seize on the spark plug tip, which can cause the motor to misfire. Go ahead and carefully rethread your spark plug back into the cylinder head, and I do emphasize be very careful, because again, like the engine oil dipstick area, this entire motor is made out of very soft aluminum that can be easily damaged. So once our spark plug has been threaded in by hand, we're going to go ahead and use our ratchet and just snug up the plug. You don't need a lot of force. About 16 foot-pounds is all that's needed. Now, we're going to go ahead and reinstall our spark plug wire and press it down until you hear a firm click. And then reinstall our access cover. So the next step here is to close the valves on our cylinder head so that any moist air that might be in your storage area where this generator might be stored over the winter, for example, doesn't get into the cylinder and corrode the valves and the cylinder walls and piston rings. And so fogging spray is slightly flammable, and as you saw earlier that I had reinstalled the spark plug wire onto our spark plug, meaning that if this ignition switch is set to on and I pull the starter rope, that it'll actually burn off the fogging spray that I just put in the motor. So when this is set to off, it won't spark. And what we're going to do here is that we're going to pull the engine very carefully with the starter rope until you feel that compression stroke. And you can feel it when you meet significant resistance, and that's when you want to stop, because that means that both the intake and exhaust valves are closed. Now this next step is optional, but if you have an access to an air compressor, you may want to take the chance now to give the insides of your generator a good sort of blowing to remove any grass or dirt that may have gone inside the generator while it was running at wherever site that you were using it at. Now, prior to reinstalling the access cover or panels on your portable generator, and after you've given the inside a good blowing with your compressed air, if you wish, go ahead and inspect the insides just to see if there are any obvious signs of any damage to the wiring, melting, or just sort of deteriorated fuel lines that may need replacing. So inside here, my fuel lines are mint condition despite this generator being 8 years old. And my wiring here looks as good as the day I bought it. Now if you've got an hour meter on your generator, now is also a good time to take note of how many hours are on the meter so that you can record it in your service logs. Give your cover a thorough inspection and make sure that the foam sound seal here is also intact, and if it's not, you can either replace it or repair it on your own or buy a new side cover. Double check your dipstick for tightness, making sure that all the covers that were removed earlier are intact, and no fluids are leaking, no fuel remains in the lines. And then tighten the securing screw. Now, if you're really particular about your generator or all your power equipment, like I am, as a final long-term storage preparation step, you can go ahead and actually use a little bit of warm sudsy water, soapy water, the same detergent I use to clean my air cleaner. I'm going to use to wipe down all the exterior components on my generator. Now, this step is highly unnecessary and is more for cosmetic purposes. I'm quite pedantic about keeping my equipment in like new condition, as you can see on this 8-year-old Honda. That a little bit of care, much like what I put into my cars, goes a long way in preserving the life and even aesthetic appearances of all the stuff that I have. So my very last and final step in preparing my generator for storage is to give the plastic surfaces a quick wipe down with a UV protection spray, such as this one made by 303. The reason why, and people think I'm crazy or stupid for doing this, is that your generator, or my generator at least when I'm using it, sits in the sun all day long. And so in doing so, that exposes all the plastic components that can crack and fade from exposure to the elements. Now, an often neglected spot on these Hondas, at least, is that the feet, which are made of rubber, are never given any sort of protectant to keep them, prevent them, from cracking and keeping them supple. So again, just a little bit of a rub with some of this protectant can go a long way, or at least in my opinion can go a long way. So as a quick recap of everything that we've done to prepare our portable generator for either winter or long-term storage is remove all the fuel from the gas tank and fuel lines and carburetor by draining it and running the generator until it completely stalls and can't restart. We've also gone and changed the engine oil. We've cleaned the air cleaner assembly, as well as used compressed air to blow out the insides of our generator, and making sure that we put everything and filled everything back up to what the manufacturer spec calls for. Once we've buttoned up this side of our generator, we've gone and then removed the spark plug to inspect it for any wear and damage, as well as injecting some engine storage spray through the spark plug hole to prevent internal corrosion of the engine. We then went and pulled the recoil starter string such that we felt or was met with resistance, indicating that the exhaust and intake valves were closed to prevent moist air from getting into the cylinder, which could potentially corrode the insides of your engine. Once we've done that and reinstalled everything, and also put some anti-seize compound on our spark plug thread, we've buttoned it all back up, and then from there we've taken a cloth with some warm soapy water and gave the exterior of our generator assembly a thorough cleaning, and then gave the entire unit a good coating of 303 UV protection spray, as most generators are run out in the hot sun. Now, before I actually put this the storage cover onto this unit, I just want to make sure that I want to point out that we want to ensure that the fuel cap is closed tightly and the vent is set to the off position, that your eco throttle is set to off, and that the engine run switch here is turned to the off position as well. And so all you're going to need to do for next season when you're ready to use this again is fill up the gas tank with fuel, turn the unit on, and start her up, and it should run without a hitch. I hope you found this video useful and informative. Rate, comment, and subscribe.